and schedules. So I will be having that for you tonight here on Sports Talk with Kerry Meyer Show. So once again, thanks for joining us here on this Tuesday night. So we appreciate you coming in. So let me get that down on the screen. So also, if you want to come in the video chat, let me set it up for you. And we'll set it up just a second. Okay, if you want to come in and video chat about tonight's about the SEC and the Pac-12, you can come on down via the sports caster video chat area. The link is in the chat room. So that's set up for you. We'll set up for the Twitter audience as well. If they want to come on the Twitter side as well, so we will set up for Twitter as well. So let's get set up. So let's get started. So Twitter and sportscaster viewers, you can access those those chat room the video chat. Let's begin with our first one. We'll begin with the Pac-12 conference. The Pac-12 conference schedules team by team. We'll go predictions and stuff like that, and then we'll go SEC. So we'll start that in a second. So once again, thanks for joining us. Okay, let's begin our first breakdown. We will begin our first breakdown of the of this. Let's go back to page 1. And we will begin with the Cal Bears. Cal Bears finished last season 8-5. Good season for them. Last year in 2019, they're projected to finish 7-5 again. So that's most likely going to happen with the their football season. This is the Pac-12 North side schedule. Pac-12 North. They was projected to finish 6-6 back in 2019. It was a year ago. They finished 7-6 back in 2018. That was about 2 years ago. So they had a winning season in 18 and also 19. So that's something right there with the Cal Bears. So their schedule is absolutely going to be brutal once the season begins. On August 29th, they will take on UNLV. That will be the first game of the season. That will be a win. So that most likely will be a win for them. Also, they will take on TCU. That most likely will be a win. That's a Mountain West team. I think they're probably going to come out a victor on that one. Let's see. Next one is going to be Cal Poly. That's run a win right there for the Cal Bears. Also an open date for the Cal Bears. That's on September 19th. They will take on Utah. Utah might give them a good game, but I think they'll win that game in a long run. So that's one of the games right there. And next game we're going to be going over is Washington State. So that's where they're going to start losing games. Also to USC, also to Oregon State, also to Washington. So they're going to get some losses right there. They're going to be 4 losses before the end of the season for the Cal Bears. But they will come back and against Oregon and get a win, and also they will take on Stanford and they'll get a win, and they will take on UCLA. I think they're going to get a win. So I'd say that 7-5 will most likely be where it's going to end up at for those involved. And if you're a Cal Bears fan, so that's one of them. I say 7-5, but my prediction, I would say even closer to 7-5. I say probably, I say 7-4. They say 7-5. I say 7-4 for the Cal Bears this year. So we will move along. Let's move along. Let's scroll down to the next schedule, which is the Oregon Ducks. We will go over to the Oregon Ducks schedule. If you want to come in and talk about the Oregon Ducks, you can via the Sportscaster video chat area. So if you're in here, so we'll begin talking about them in just a second. So we just started. Let's see if you can hear me good. Waiting for the connection to come up. So if you can hear me, let me know. So, okay, let's go over the Oregon schedule. Oregon schedule. If you're an Oregon fan, last year they finished. They finished 12-2 in the season. That was a good season for them. Also, 2 years ago they finished 9-4. Also, their projection from last year was 9-3, but they toppled that record. They finished 12-2, so that was something right there. So they was projected to finish with 9 wins, but that was just not going to happen. They had 9 wins 2 years ago, so that's just something. They finished 8-1 in the Pac-12 conference standings. I say that most likely will be closer to 8-1. I say they most likely will get their first loss of the season. Let's look at their schedule. They will take on North Dakota State. That's a run-a-win game. I think they're going to win that game. But the only 2 losses I'm looking at on the screen is Ohio State and Cal. That's the only 2 losses I'm thinking they're going to get right there. That's on September 12th and October 17th. So I'll be honest with you. Right now, I think Oregon will most likely be that potential playoff team when it comes down to it. So that's their only 2 losses right there. They will take on Hawaii. Hawaii can be a good team that can be a decimator right there. But I think they'll win that game against Hawaii. They'll take on Colorado at Colorado. That'll be a win. Also on October 3rd, they'll take on Washington. That will be a win there. And also, they will have an open date on October the 10th. So they're going to have theirs most likely in the middle of October. So that's most likely once the season gets kicked into high gear. They will take on Stanford. That'll be on October 24th. That most likely will be a win. They will take on Arizona. That'll be at Arizona. It's going to be tough against Arizona, but I think they're going to come in and get a win against the Arizona Wildcats. They will take on USC. That'll be at home. That'll be something right there. USC and Oregon. That'll be a good win right there. Good game to see. That's in the late nights. They will take on Arizona State. That'll be a home game, and also they'll take on Washington State. That'll be at Washington State, so they're going to get a win there, and they'll take on Oregon State. That's the rivalry between Oregon State and Oregon. So I say they most likely will finish with 10 wins this year again. So that's just not out of the realm of possibility right there, if you ask me. So if you got a question or comment about Oregon football, you can post your comments via the Sportscaster chat room. We are going over SEC and also the Pac-12 tonight, so that's we're doing both of them. So we will move along, and we'll go over to the Oregon State schedule. That is so okay. Last season they finished 5-7, so they was not even that good. Um, they finished with only 5 wins, but just over 2 years ago, they finished with only 2 wins. So that's going to be a significant improvement for the Oregon State Beavers right now. They'll finish 4-5 in the Pac-12 conference, but I'm gonna tell you right now, that's just gonna their schedule is going to be absolutely rough because every time you get the Pac-12 getting these rough schedules, they can overcome those schedules. So let's begin looking at those schedule now. They will take on Oklahoma State. That'll be a loss. I think that's not going to be a win for them. Most likely, it's not going to happen. They will take on Colorado State. That'll be the win, and it will take on Portland State. Portland State is an FCS run-a-win school. That'll most likely be a run-a-win for them. Also, they'll take on Washington State at home. That's going to be a win. Their losses will come against Arizona State. They will take on Washington. That will be a loss for them. And they will take on Stanford. They will take on Utah, and they will take on Oregon. That will be the losses. But the wins will come against Cal, and then it forgot Stanford. So it's also Stanford. So Stanford. So those are going to be the 5 losses that they're going to have against those teams. But they will get their last 3 wins against Cal, UCLA, and Arizona. So I say this: look, it might not be out of the realm of possibility. They might finish with another 5-win season for the Oregon State Beavers. But if they finish 6-6, they will be lucky. They will be absolutely lucky. So so that's what I'm looking at right there on the screen right here. So that's what we're looking at for the Oregon State. They're most likely going to finish 6-6, but I'd say they finish with 5 because that schedule's not going to be. They're not going to give. I mean, Arizona's not going to give them an easy game. They're going to give them a lot of fits. That's one thing about it with Oregon State. So we're going to go over Stanford now. I'm going to go over to the Stanford Cardinals. Last year they finished 4-8. That was just not a good season for them. But 2 years ago they finished 9-4. That was in 2018. They're projected to finish with 7 wins this year, so that's 7-5 for the Stanford Cardinal. That most likely will be even higher. I say eventually in their season, but they also is projected to finish 5-4 in their preseason 2020 projections. So that's let's begin with their schedule breakdown. We'll look at the first one, William and Mary. That's going to be a win. That's a predominantly FCS school. I think they're going to get a win there. Pac-12 always destroys these small FCS schools and stuff like that. They will take on Arizona. That's not going to be an easy game up in Tempe. I mean, they're going to probably come out with either a shootout win or maybe a close win or whatever. They will take on USC. That will be at home. That will be a win. I think that's probably they're gonna get a win there because They play them tough every year. But the losses, let's give you the losses breakdowns. They will take on UCLA. They'll be out in um, Los Angeles. I think they'll lose that game. Notre Dame. Now, this one is not going to be the easiest team on the schedule now. That's going to be a tough team, Notre Dame, at Notre Dame. And Notre Dame's going to give them some fits. They're going to lose that game. They might lose by maybe 3, 4, 5 points. I'm pretty sure they will. They will take on Oregon. Oregon most likely will give them some fits as well. And I'm going to tell you, they might come out a loss, a close loss. Now they will take on Washington. Washington at Washington. That's another team that's probably going to beat them. Now, the wins that comes up will most likely be against Washington State, Oregon State, and BYU, to say the least. So, I'll be honest with you, BYU is another team that might be on the rise this year in their conference. But they most likely will get a win against that against the BYU team. So I say they saying 7-5. I'm most likely going to give them maybe at least 4 losses. I'd say I'll give them 4 losses, and they most likely will finish that 7-4 season. So I'd say 7-4 for Stanford. So if you're in here, thanks for it. Let's look at them. Patriot Rule Jam, thanks for that $200. Jimmy Jazz, thanks for the $200. I appreciate it. And we will move along to the Washington football schedule. I'm going to scroll it down now, and we'll go over Washington State. Okay, last year they finished 8-5. Good year for them. So it was an 8-win season for them. They kind of doubled it 2 years ago. It was 10-4, so they finished with 10 wins, 10-win season, and 2 years ago. They're projected to finish 9-3 in 2019, so that was last year. So I look at it this way, but they finished 8-5, so they kind of went down south and finished 8-5. So let's give you the schedule. They will take on Michigan. That will be a win. I'm pretty sure they will come out of at home with a win. Michigan's tough, but I'm gonna tell you, I'm pretty sure Washington will come out. Now they will take on Sacramento State. That's another team. That's going to most likely be a W for the Sacramento State. So that's going to be in that game. It will take on Utah State. That'll be on September 19th. That'll be a win. September 26th, they will have an open date. So that's early in late September. So when they're peaking. So they're before the off break, that'll be on September 26th. They'll most likely be undefeated, 3-0. So they most likely will be 3-0. But their first loss will be against Oregon, at Oregon. That's something right there. You're not going to get a win against Oregon at home. So they're most likely going to end up losing that game against Oregon, at Oregon. Now, they will take on Oregon State the next week. That'll be at home. So it most likely will be a win there. But they will take on Utah, and Utah is not going to give them any favors or anything. They're going to lose that game. So that's on October 17th. They will take on UCLA. That's going to be the loss right there. That's going to determine if they're going to that's going to be at USC at their place. So USC is not some little run-of-the-mill football team now, if you ask me. Now the next 4 wins will be against Um, Arizona, Cal, Stanford, and then the last one's going to be against. So that's I'll be honest with you. That's the wins. That's most likely going to get them 7 wins right there, or maybe or greater. 7 wins or greater. In their football season for the Washington Huskies. Um, so they're going to get those wins. Those 3 losses most likely going to end up, like I said, against Utah, Oregon, and USC. But they're 6 wins will most likely end up will be in Oregon State, Arizona, Cal, Stanford, Colorado, and Washington State. So they could either go 10-3 if everything goes well. They can either go 10-3. So once again, this is from the this is Washington. We will break down the Washington State schedule. So let's begin with Washington State. I got it up on my screen. We'll scroll it down a little bit to Washington State. Last year they finished 6-7. They finished with 6 wins, 6-6. So they got their last loss, so their 7th loss of the season. That looks, I think, that was in the bowl game. 2 years ago they finished 11-2. They was projected to finish 8-4, but they kind of went had some losses here and there. So they finished 6-7. But they're projected to finish with 3 wins this year. They're most likely not going to. I'd say maybe 2 wins. Most likely be that 2-win mark. If you ask me. Okay, let's go ahead and break that down for you. They will take on Utah State. That'll be at Utah State. That's very hard to play against Utah State at home. But I think if they can go up in there and dominate the first quarter and stuff like that in the first half, they can come out with a win. Now they will take on American Conference opponent Houston. So they have Houston on the schedule this year. So they're most likely going to get a win against Houston, Washington State. Now, Idaho. They will take on Idaho. I think Idaho is back in the FCS. So I think they're going to win against Idaho. Now their losses will begin. They'll begin a skid of losing streaks. They will lose against Oregon State, Stanford, Colorado, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington. So that's the teams they're most likely going to end up losing to. Now, teams they're going to get wins against is Cal, Utah, and Arizona State. So that's most likely going to get them some losses. They say 3-6. I say they're going to win maybe at least 2 games. I can kind of, because they haven't been irrelevant in so many years. So that's just they went 8-4. Let's see. They was going to be picked to finish 8-4, but they finished 11-2 back in 18. So they had 11-win season. So they most likely will fall apart again this year. So let's see what's in there. Pat Rue Jams, thanks for joining us. We appreciate you coming in. That is the first Pac-12 schedule. Let's go over to the Pac-12 South. We'll break down the South side this time. And we'll begin with the Arizona Sun Devils, finishing 4-8 last season. They will most likely finish 4-8 this season. Their 2020 Pac-12 projection will be 2-7. I think it's not good enough to keep your job. So they're going to have to start getting some wins, or they will not be nobody that coaching staff at Arizona will not have their jobs anytime soon because they want to get back to perfection. That's what they want to get. They finished 5-7 2 years ago, so they was just a dumpy team in 2018 and then last year. So they're projecting to be another dumpy year for Arizona, the Arizona Wildcats. So let's begin with our schedule breakdown. They will take on Hawaii. That'll be on August 29th. That'll be the first game of the college football season. Also, they'll take on Portland State on September 5th. That'll be a win, so they most likely will go 2-0. But they will start losing against Stanford, Texas Tech. Texas Tech is not going to give them an easy game. I'm going to be honest with you. Arizona Wildcats team is going to have to get going. That's against Stanford. No, Texas Tech on September 19th. Now they'll have an open date on the 26th. They will get back at the conference play. That will be against UCLA. And that will be a loss against UCLA. They will take on Colorado. Colorado will most likely give them the win on October the 9th. And they will take on Washington at Washington. That's not going to be an easy game. That's probably going to be a loss there. They will take on Oregon on October 31st. That is on Halloween day and night. That'll be a loss. That'll probably be a night game for them. For Arizona, they will take on Utah. Utah will that'll be at Utah. That'll be a loss. Then they'll have the second open date. They have two open dates now. Please pay attention. If you're an Arizona fan and you're thinking that they're going to have a game on November 14th, they're not. They're going to have two off dates. One on September 26th and one on November the 14th. Then the next weekend they will take on Oregon State. That will be a loss, and most likely they'll end up getting a win against Arizona State, which is at home for them. So Arizona football, I'm going to be honest with you, they're just going to have to get their act together because their coaching staff is not going to be there for long. So this is the Pac-12 South predictions. Let's move along to the Arizona State Sun Devils. We're looking at them right now. Arizona State Sun Devils last year finishing 8-5 with a good year. Herm Edwards is the coach over there. They're projected to finish 4-5 in the Pac-12 conference. That's but their last year's projections was projected to finish 6-6. But I'll be honest with you, they got it together and they got 8 wins last season for the Arizona State Sun Devils. So let's go ahead and go over the schedule. They will take on Northern Arizona. That is a FCS school. That's definitely going to be a runner win for them. They will take on UNLV. UNLV is a Mountain West team. I think they'll win against UNLV. That'll be a win at UNLV. Now they will take on Baylor. Baylor's a tough team now. Baylor has been on the map for a couple of years. So they'll get a win against Baylor. Now, USC, I don't think they'll get a win against USC. That's at USC. So that's gonna be their first loss of the season. So they're gonna go 3-0 in the first 3 weeks. But once they take on USC, They're going to end up losing that game. They're going to end up losing, going on some skits. They will take on Colorado. That'll be at Colorado. That'll be a loss. We'll give you the loss factors first. They would take on Washington State. That'll be a loss. They will be taking on Oregon. That'll be a loss. They'll be taking on Arizona. That'll be a loss. They'll get some wins against Cal and against Utah. So they'll get wins against Cal and Utah. But Colorado, Washington State, Oregon, that's going to be their loss. That's going to be the downfall right there for the Arizona State Sun Devils. They're projected to win 7 games this year, 7-5. But I'm going to go on a limb. I might say they might win 6 games this year. They might win 6 for the Arizona State Sun Devils. So okay, Seahawk fan 19, thanks for joining us. Okay, the next one we're going to go over is the Colorado football schedule. I'm going to go over that schedule for you. We'll go over their resume. Last year they finished 5-7. Colorado, look, it hasn't been relevant in a while. Also, they finished 5-7 2 years ago. So they're most likely going to finish 5-7 again this year. That's not something right there. These Colorado fans want to endure winning only 5 games a year. So they're gonna have to get it going and quick. Let's begin with the schedule. They would take on Colorado State at Colorado State. That's always a matchup between the two Colorado schools. That'll be a win. So most likely, I think that's going to be a win. They're going up there to get a win. Now they will take on Fresno State. That's a Mountain West football team. I think they're going to get a win there. They will take on Texas A&M. Texas A&M is an SEC school, and I'm gonna tell you, they played years ago when it was the old Southwest Conference before they both broke up and went to different conferences. So Texas A&M is most likely going to give them a loss. Now Oregon is definitely going to give them a loss. That's going to be at home. They'll most likely get embarrassed at home by Oregon. Now they'll have an open date on October the 3rd. The next week they will take on Arizona at Arizona. They will head back on the road against Arizona, and that'll be a loss. Their last 3 wins are going to be against UCLA, Arizona State, and Washington State. Now their 4 losses will be against USC, Stanford, Washington, and Utah. So that's going to be their 4 losses right there. That's going to end up getting them only 5 wins this year. I say it's going to probably be at least close to 4. If you can ask me, this way the schedule pans out for Colorado in the Pac-12. Okay, the next schedule we're going to be going over is the UCLA schedule. I'm going to break that down for you. UCLA went 4-8 last season. They also went 3-8 and 3-9 in 2018. So they kind of was not also another team that fell apart. They look like they're going to finish 6-6 this year. That's not going to most likely be happening in a nutshell. So it's give you that schedule. Okay, let's give you the schedule. I'm going to begin with that schedule breakdown. They will have New Mexico State. That'll be a win. They will take on Hawaii on September 5th. That will be a win. They'll have an open date on September the 12th. So they will be undefeated 2-0 before that open date. They will take on San Diego State. That is a Mountain West team out in San Diego. That'll be a win out in San Diego State, but they probably most likely going to get. It's going to be a tough game there. They would take on Stanford. Stanford on September 26th. That'll be a win. They will take on Arizona. Arizona on October the 3rd. That'll be a win. Their losses. Let's go over their losses. Let's break down their losses. They will take on Arizona State. They will lose there. Also, Colorado. They will lose to Colorado. That's always a tough game against Colorado. Now they're going to have another two open dates. So in the Pac-12, they're going to have two open dates for UCLA. One on September 12th and one on October 24th. So they don't have a game that weekend. Okay, the next game we're going to go over is Utah. Utah most likely will give them a loss at home. Now, also they will take on Oregon State, and I think they're going to lose against Oregon State. That's at Oregon State. They will take on Washington State. That'll be their last win of the season. That'll be on November the 14th. They will take on USC, and they will take on Cal. So that's another team. So their season looks like they're going to finish with 6 wins, but it's not going to be easy said and done for those teams involved on the schedule for UCLA, because Hawaii is also a tough game. I mean, sure, they're playing in the Mountain West Conference, but the truth of the matter is, look, they're gonna have some games that are gonna be rough for UCLA. Now, the next one we're gonna break down is USC. We're gonna break down USC. We'll go ahead and break down USC. USC will looks like they're finished 9-3 this season. That's their projection. 7-2 in the conference. That's probably going to get them into the hopefully another bowl season. Hopefully, if they can get a lot better, I think they'll get into the college football playoffs. If there's going to be a lot of discussion about that. They finished 8-5 in 2019. Also, they finished 5-7 in 2018. So they had a 5-win season 2 years ago. But a year ago, in 2019, they had a 8-win season. So that's a entirely different switch around, if you ask me. So let's begin their breakdown. USC will have Alabama. That's not going to be easy. That is going to be a loss. That's going to be out in Arlington, Texas, starting on September the 5th. They will get a win against New Mexico. That'll be at home. So that home game, that's going to be a home game, but it's also going to be a neutral site for the Alabama game in USC. Stanford will be at Stanford. That'll be a loss. But the rest of the wins will come against Arizona State, Utah, let's see, Cal, Arizona. That's at Arizona. They will have an open date on October 24th, so that's going to be later in the season. They will take on Colorado. That will be on Halloween day. That'll be a win. UCLA. That'll be a win. That'll be at UCLA. That's they shared it on their football field over there, so it's going to be at home. They're going to be they're going to be in their city, but they're they're going to be playing in the LA Coliseum, and that's they share that stadium, so it's going to be a home game for UCLA. Now they will take on Notre Dame. Now Notre Dame, this is sure they're going to get a win against Notre Dame, but Notre Dame is going to give them a tough game. I'll be honest with you. They always give USC a tough game, if you ask me. So now the next schedule we're going to break down. This is the last of the Pac-12 schedule. This is the Utah Utes. We'll break them down for you. Utah finished 11-3 a year ago in 2019, and 2 years ago they finished 9-5. So it's a completely different turnaround for their that football team as we go. They had 2 good years, 2 years in a row back in 18 and also last year in 2019. So they're projected to finish 8-4 on the season. Utah, I'd say they'll win most likely 9 games this year at the most. At the most. Their conference record will be 5-4, so most likely be something's going to happen there. 8-4. I'd say it's probably going to be 5-4. It's probably going to be maybe in 4-3. I say 4-3 to give you that the breakdown. Okay, let's begin with the Utah schedule. Utah will take on BYU. That will be on September the 3rd. That will be on a Thursday night, just like Tulane and Southeastern will play on September the 3rd. That will be a win. So that's be a Thursday night football game. That'll be the first couple of games of the start the college football season. They will take on Montana State. That'll be on September 12th. That'll be a win. They also will take on Wyoming. I think they'll get a win against Wyoming. Wyoming's that's going to be out west in Wyoming. Also, they'll take on Cal. Cal will that'll be at Cal. That'll be a loss. USC will give them a loss. Washington State. That'll be 4 losses right there. That's going to be 4 losses going into the latter part of their season. Now their open date won't be until October 24th. That's also going to be late in the college football season. The next couple of wins will be against Washington, UCLA, let's see, Arizona, Oregon State, and Colorado. So that's most likely going to be the tip of the iceberg for those teams going into the 2020 college football season. So I say this. The Pac-12 most likely going to get somebody in the college football playoffs before you know it. So once again, this concludes the Pac-12 breakdown. We will begin with the SEC breakdown now. We're going to go over all 14 teams in the Southeastern Conference. We're going to begin our Southeastern Conference breakdown. We're going to go over to the East first. We're going to break down Florida Gators. The Florida Gators this year finished 11-2 a year ago. Also 10-3 in 2018. So it's a pretty good, significant turnaround for the Florida Gators. They're selected to finish 10-2, 6-2 in the SEC. That's in the SEC East. I don't know if they'll get into the SEC championship game. If everything goes right for the Florida Gators this year, I'm pretty sure they will get there to the SEC championship and contend with the LSUs, the Alabamas of the world. So Let's give you the Florida schedule. I'm going to go ahead and give you that Florida schedule right now. Eastern Washington, I think they're going to get a win against them. That's just a FCS school right there. They will take on Kentucky. That's in the SEC East. That starts off conference play. They will take on South Alabama. South Alabama is a Sun Belt team, but they will get a win against them. But their only loss will be against Tennessee at Tennessee, and also Georgia in the cocktail party. That'll be in Jacksonville. So that's going to be the only loss of the season. So their last couple of wins will be against South Carolina, LSU. I think they're going to win against. If they come to Tiger Stadium, they play tough. They play as tough in that game, but I think it's going to probably be a loss there. I'll be honest with you. I mean, I don't want to get no SEC fans, Gators fans mad at me, but hey, look, I got to call it like I see it. Sure, they're predicting to win, but I don't think it's going to happen. LSU might come out. They come out and win this game. They will take on Ole Miss. That will be a win at Ole Miss. Open date will be October 24th. Also, they will take on Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt, it'll be a win. Missouri, that'll be a win. New Mexico State, definitely a win. And Florida State, their rivalry, most likely be a win at Florida State. So like I said, that LSU game on October the 10th, that's going to be at home. LSU last time going into the swamp, and they played them hard. That's one thing. That's one thing. You cannot underestimate LSU football. To be honest with you, I mean they got some wins in the swamp. So that's just the game we're going to be looking forward to on October the 10th, and that's LSU. Now we'll move along to the Georgia football schedule. I'm going to go over to Georgia now. Georgia finished 12-2 last season. Went to the semifinals, so they went to the semifinals last season. But to be honest with you, I think they're going to finish with 11 wins this year. That's most likely going to happen for the Georgia Bulldogs. They're finishing 7-1 in the SEC. They finished 11 wins in 2018, so that's an entirely different situation at Georgia now. Georgia most likely will be contending for the college football playoffs year in and year out. So let's begin with their breakdown. They will take on Virginia. Virginia at Atlanta. That'll be in Atlanta. That'll be a neutral site football game. I say they'll win that game maybe by a close score or something like that. Approximately maybe 10 points or greater. They will take on East Tennessee State. That'll be at home against East Tennessee State. So they'll have a 2-game before they go to Alabama. Their only loss will be against Alabama. And that's absolutely tough to play against Alabama at Alabama. Now they'll take on ULM. ULM, they'll beat them. They'll beat ULM. Also, they'll take on Vanderbilt. They'll get the win there against Vanderbilt. Also, they'll take on Auburn. They'll get a win there. Also, they'll take on Missouri at Missouri. Open date will be on October 24th. Before they take on Florida, that'll be up in Jacksonville. That's the cocktail party. That'll be a win there. So that's probably going to get their last. They're probably going to get those. Their last 10 wins most likely will end against. I think it's going to be against Tennessee. So it's most likely going to be where they're going to get that 10th win of the season. And they'll take on Kentucky. That'll be at Kentucky. Kentucky's always tough, but they're on a rise right now. They're on a rise. Kentucky. in the SEC. They will take on Georgia Tech. That's their rivalry. They will win that game at home. So I say 11 wins is most likely a reasonable um, fix for Georgia. So let's give you the Kentucky schedule. I'm going to go over the Kentucky schedule. Kentucky last year finished 8-5, also 10-3 2 years ago. So, like I said, they also on the rise in the SEC. Look out for this team again this year. They're projected to finish 3-5 in the SEC, but I look at it this way: they most likely will get into another bowl game. Once one of these days, they're going to be a good team. They're most likely going to contend for the SEC East to get to earn the right to go to the SEC championship. So I look at it this way: Kentucky's not going anywhere anytime soon. They will take on Eastern Michigan. That'll be at home. That'll be a win. They will be at Florida. That'll be a loss. Definitely a loss. It'll probably be close or just in a just a distance scoring right there. They will take on Kent State. That will be a MAC team. That'll be a win. Also, they'll take on South Carolina. That will be a win. They will take on Auburn. That'll be a loss. So their losses are going to come at the hands of Auburn. The last couple of weeks: Auburn, Missouri, Tennessee, and Georgia. That's going to be their 4 losses right there. Now the wins, they'll get their last 4 wins. They'll get against Eastern Illinois. That's FCS school. That's going to be an easy schedule for them on the FCS side. They'll beat them. They'll take on Vanderbilt. They'll get a win there. Mississippi State, they will get a win there. And Louisville. Louisville's an ACC team, but I think they'll get that win against Louisville. So that 7-5 most likely will be the their record for the Kentucky Wildcats. So now let's go over to the Missouri schedule. We'll break down the Missouri schedule. We are going to be Missouri finished 6-6 last season. They also finished 8-5 2 years ago. So they had they're starting to get their team back in order. They're projected to finish 6-6 this year. But I'm gonna go out on a limb and say they most likely will finish. I say between 7 wins. I'd say they'll get 7 wins on the season. Because this schedule right here, I'm looking at. We're all looking at it. It is excellent schedule for them. They will take on Central Arkansas. That's a Southland Conference team. Most likely a win. Vanderbilt will be a win. But their losses will come against South Carolina, Tennessee, BYU. That's a tough schedule right there. BYU. At BYU. They will take on Georgia, and that will be a loss. They will take on Mississippi State. That'll be a loss. Florida. That'll be a loss. Now they will take on their last wins will be against Louisiana and Arkansas. So that's going to be the last couple of wins going into the 2020 football season for the SEC East. So we'll move along to South Carolina. South Carolina finished last season 4-8. Hopefully they can get back on the map. They finished 7-6 2 years ago in 2018. They're projected to finish 4-4 in the season. In the SEC projections, that's from College Football News. It's a very good source right here, College Football News. So let's go over the schedule. They'll have Coastal Carolina that'll come out with a win. The first 3 weeks of the season, they will get their wins. That will be against East Carolina. That'll be American Conference. That'll be a win. Missouri. That'll be a win. But their losses will come against Kentucky, Florida, Georgia, LSU. LSU will win that game. That's going to be in Tiger Stadium. We always play them tough when we play those guys. And they will take on Clemson. That'll be a loss. Now their 4 wins. Their last 4 wins will be against Tennessee, Texas A&M, Vanderbilt, and Wofford. Wofford's a small FCS school, but I think they will get a win. That's one thing about it. You can't underestimate these small schools, but truth of the matter is they never, and I mean never had an upset since the last time they had an upset was against Appalachian State in Michigan. Appalachian State was an FCS school. Michigan was a Big Ten school. That was back in 2007. That was they just absolutely took them to the woodshed and won that game convincingly up in Ann Arbor. But that's the last time the FCS had a major upset. And most likely we'll be looking for one this year from the FCS. So let's move along to the Tennessee schedule. Tennessee finishing 8-5 last season. Coach Pruitt, hopefully he can get his team back on the right track because that's something. Look, Tennessee fans expect year after year is that team getting better and better. So they can contend for the SEC East and also the SEC Championship and also the college football playoff if they can build up a team. 2 years ago, they finished 5-7. 5-7 is not something Coach Pruitt wanted them. So they got better last year. So it's also they had some injuries throughout the season, but hopefully with all these SEC teams in the East and the West, hopefully they don't have significant injuries to report, and they can have their seasons. So let's go over the breakdown. They will take on Charlotte. That's going to be their first game in Knoxville. That's going to be a win. They will lose against Oklahoma. Oklahoma's not something. They're an SEC killer right there. If to start off the season, they will get their wins against Furman, Florida, Missouri. So that's going to be once again they'll before they start with South Carolina, they will finish 4-1, and most likely they will drop to South Carolina, Alabama, Arkansas, Georgia. But their last couple of wins will be against Kentucky, Troy, and Vanderbilt. So I say they'll finish a good 7-5 this year. If my memory serves me correct, hopefully they do. But I say it's going to be 6 wins. They'll most likely get between 6 and 7 wins for the Tennessee Vols. Now, okay, the last one is this is on the SEC East side. Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt finished 3-9. Not a good season for them. Also, they finished 6-7 a year ago, so they are projected to finish in a lopsided year this year, 4-8. So I hope hopefully the prognosticators on college football news is wrong. So that's what they got. I'm looking at right here. Okay, they will have Mercer. Mercer is an FCS school. They will get a win. but their losses will start against Missouri and K-State. Missouri and K-State. So they will be 2-2 before they take on Georgia. And that's going to be a loss against Georgia, at Georgia. So their last couple of wins will be against Ole Miss and Louisiana Tech. But they're going to end up losing games against Kentucky, South Carolina, Florida, Texas A&M, and Tennessee, which is their in-state rival. So I say this: if Vanderbilt gets off the snide early and often, I think they're going to be good. Hopefully, they can be good this year. Hopefully, they can prove some people wrong, because they got a chip on their shoulder. When they put them at 4-8, they have a huge chip on their shoulder. So that's something right there to look forward to this year, going into this 2020 college football season. Okay, we're going to go over the SEC West. So we're going to begin SEC West breakdown. Okay, the SEC West breakdown. Let's go ahead and break that down for you. Alabama will go ahead and break down the Alabama Crimson Tide. Finished 11-1. No playoffs last season, so they're projected to finish 11-1. So I'd say they're most likely going to finish 11-1. 7-1 in the SEC, but it's going to be a huge race between LSU and Alabama. I say it right now here on this show. They finished 11-2 a year ago. There was no bowl, no playoff games. They participated in. They went into a bowl game, so they got their 11th win. Nick Saban's going to be absolutely fired up for this season. Absolutely. I mean, he's going to get this team. They're going to remember what happened when LSU beat them. So let's give you the breakdown. They will have USC. I think they'll win against USC. That's just a convincing win right there. Their only loss will be against the LSU Tigers. That's going to be that's going to be the game of the century right there. That's going to be the absolute game of the century. I'll be honest with you. The rest of the schedule will pan out real well. Georgia, they'll get a win. Kent State, Ole Miss, Arkansas, Mississippi State, Tennessee, Tennessee Martin, Texas A&M, and Auburn. So that's most likely they're going to be contending for the college football playoffs this year. I think they will. I mean, you're not going to hear you're not going to see Alabama fade off the map. That's not going to happen. So in the SEC West, so there's going to be a very competitions scheduled this year for the Alabama. Sure, we bitch and complain and moan that Alabama has a very weak schedule and stuff like that to get into the playoffs and stuff like that. I know that, but the truth of the matter is, if they run through all these opponents this year, I'm pretty sure they'll get most likely undefeated. I mean, I'm not trying to just tell you this just to just to bullshit you. I'm telling you this because it's a fact. So let's go over the Arkansas schedule. Arkansas finished 2-10 last year. I'm pretty sure they most likely will finish with 3 wins this year. I think they're not gonna improve this year. I think they're that with that coach that they have, he's from SMU. I think he's not gonna. Hopefully, he can get the team better. But here's their only 3 wins they're going to get. They're going to get their 3 wins against Kent State, Charleston Southern, Tennessee, but they will most likely in ULM. So that's going to be 4 losses right there. So 4 losses, but they're most likely going to get 3 wins if my memory serves me correct. So if that happens, they will take on Notre Dame at Notre Dame. That's not going to be an easy game. They'll lose that game. They'll play Mississippi State. That'll be a loss. They'll play against Texas A&M. That'll be a loss. Alabama, that'll be a loss. LSU, that's the proverbial game every year. They play that either on Thanksgiving or they changed it up every year because of they've been playing every year after the Thanksgiving holidays. But to be honest with you, that's just going to be flipped around, reversals. They will take on. They will have an open date. Will take on Tennessee. They will lose to Auburn. They will lose to Ole Miss, and they will lose to Missouri. But their only win will be against ULM, which is University of Louisiana at Monroe. That's so. I don't think I'm not expecting a lot out of Arkansas this season in the SEC West. Now the Auburn Tigers. This team right here will be the can make some noise this year if they put their mind to it. Let's give you their record from last year. They finished 9-4, so it looks like they're on an upswing. They finished 8-5 2 years ago, so it looks like an upswing for them. 9-3, they're projected to have a winning season there. But if Auburn can be can put the can be the factor for the SEC West, that's most likely going to happen. So it could be a factor because any time of the week during the SEC season, like you don't know how these teams are going to go or finish or whatever. So they will take on Alcorn State. That'll be at home. That'll be a win. They'll take on North Carolina. That'll be in Atlanta. That will be a win. They'll get off to a good start. 1, 2, 3 in the first 4 weeks. So they'll be 4-0 for the first 4 weeks. And then they will take on Kentucky. They'll be undefeated. So they will most likely be undefeated before they take on Georgia and end up getting their first loss of the season. Then Texas A&M, they will get their win there. Open date will be on October 24th. They will take on Mississippi State. That'll be a loss there. That'll be on Halloween night. It'll probably be a night game or a day game, whatever they choose on the networks. They will take on Arkansas. That'll be up and at home. That'll be a win. Now, LSU, I think they're going to win against us. So most likely, I think we're going to get a loss against Auburn. If you they're taking on UMass. That'll be on November 14th, and then November 21st, that'll be LSU, and then November 28th, the Iron Bowl. I think they're going to lose to Alabama in the Iron Bowl. Now, for the LSU Tigers, my team here in the state of Louisiana, I'm going to break it down for you. I projected them to finish 10-2 this year, so I say 10-2. They're projected 9-3, so it's a totally different breakdown between my prognostications and theirs. So last year, LSU finished 10-3. So, like I said, Sharon, I'll be honest with you. I'm like what I'm seeing out of this Tiger football team, and I'm expecting more in the future with the LSU Tigers. So, we will break down the schedule. I say this: they will will take on UTSA. That will be a win. Texas, this game right here. And I'm going to say it. That game a couple of years ago up in Arlington, Texas, that was just a shootout game. So I say we're going to win against Texas now. Now, we'll take on Rice. Rice up in Houston. So we're going back up in Houston. So that'll be Rice. We never played Rice in a couple of years. So we're playing a Conference USA team. That most likely be a win. Now, they will take on the Ole Miss Rebels. That'll be on September 26th. That game right there, the Ole Miss Rebels, that was an absolute video game. Barrage, if you ask me, with Joe Burrow throwing 7 touchdowns in that football game, and LSU racking up over 700 yards against the Ole Miss Rebels. And Ole Miss returning the favor, putting up 600 yards. Now, they will take on the Nickel State Colonels. That'll be an easy win for LSU, but that loss will come against Florida. I'm pretty sure it will be against Florida. But it might be close in that game. It might be absolutely close in the Florida game, because every time you play Florida, we're gonna get into these close games. They will take on Arkansas. That'll be a win. They will take on Mississippi State. That'll be on October 24th. That will be a win. Now we're off on Halloween night, so we don't have a game. So that's going to be our first off week of the season before we prepare for that November 7th. That is going to be the game of the century right there. We have to prepare for. It's Alabama. And that's going to determine if you're going to win the SEC West. So that's most likely going to be the wins right there that LSU is going to get. Now, South Carolina. We haven't played them in a couple of years. They're in the East. We're in the West. So I think we're going to get a win there. Now, Auburn most likely, we played a close game a couple of years ago. There was a 24-23 victory in that game against Auburn when we was played up there a couple of years ago in the Plains. So I say that's going to be a loss. So and most likely we'll get a loss there, and Texas A&M will get a win there. That game up in Texas A&M, that was a couple of years ago. That was an absolute disgusting 7 overtime victory. That was something we shouldn't have never. And I was at Manning's that night. I was at Manning's. And when I saw that game, that was just sloppy to the core. So I say 10-2, but they're predicted 9-3. My predictions are going to stand at 10-2. So their first 2 losses most likely be against Florida and most likely Auburn. So that'd be the first the 2 losses that I'm projecting. They won't win. They'll win against Alabama. That's just my take on it. We'll go over the Mississippi State schedule in just a second. I'm going to go over that Mississippi State schedule. Mississippi State, they looks like they're going to be coming back on the rise as well. They look like they're going to finish 7-5. I'm pretty sure they'll finish 7-5 this year. They finished 6-7 last season. 8-5 2 years ago. But their SEC record is not that good. They're going to be finishing three wins in the SEC. Most likely not going to be in the race for the SEC West. I don't think that's going to happen. So let's look at it. They will take on New Mexico. That'll be a win. North Carolina State, that will be a win. Arkansas, that will be a win. Against my Tulane Green Wave, they're most likely going to be a win there. I'll be honest with you, these two haven't played in almost since Tulane left the SEC back in a couple of years. I think it was the 60s or something like that. So I can't remember 60s. They will lose against Texas A&M. They will lose against Alabama. They will lose against LSU. They will lose against Kentucky, and also they will lose against Ole Miss. Their last 3 wins will be against Auburn, Missouri, and also Alabama A&M. That's going to be their last 3 wins of the season. So I say they're going to finish most likely. I say close to 7-6. If you ask me. So that's most likely going to happen for the Mississippi State Bulldogs in the SEC. So we will go over the Ole Miss schedule. We also have the Texas A&M schedule to break down. So we got 2 more. Also, if you have a question about the SEC, post your comments via the Sportscaster chat room. We're looking at the screen right now. We have 8 people in the breakdowns in the chat area. So also, if you want a video chat, you want to come on and give your opinion about what you think about what the SEC is going to bring this year, you can also do that as well via the Sportscaster video chat link that's in the chat room. Okay, let's begin. Ole Miss finished 6-6. They will finish 6-6 this year, 2-6 in the SEC. Last year they finished 4-8. They wasn't that good. I mean, I think they're still on that probation. I don't know if they're off their probation yet for that low corruption that they had at their school. They finished 5-7 2 years ago, so that was 2 years ago. The first game of the season, they will take on Baylor. That'll be up in Houston. That most likely will be a win. Southeast Missouri State, that'll be at home. That'll be a win. The losses will begin against Auburn, LSU, Alabama, Vanderbilt, Florida. And their last 4 wins will be against the last 3, last 4 wins will be against UConn. UConn's a Big East team. Arkansas, Georgia Southern, Mississippi State. But their last loss will be against Texas A&M. That'll be at Texas A&M. So I'm hoping if they can get off their low probation that they had, hopefully they'll be in a bowl game within a year or 2 or something like that. I don't know what's the their limit on the probation. What's their so I'll be honest with you. Ole Miss looks they're gonna bounce back. They're gonna bounce back big time. I mean, it's gonna take some time for the Ole Miss fans to get a win, but they will be back on the map before you know it. So so that's something right there. Now we'll look at Texas A&M. Texas A&M schedule. This is the last of the SEC schedules here. They finished 8-5 1 year ago, and 2 years ago they finished 9-4. So this team's on an uptick as we know it. Jimbo Fisher is gonna looks like he's gonna build this program for the future. So I think that's most likely the future is bright for them. They will finish 5-3 in the SEC in 2020. Last year they finished 9-3. So 9-3. Last year they was projected to finish 9-3, but 8-5 is just something the fans are most likely will get sooner or later. But they're going to finish with 9 wins. I say if they can get off to a good start, I say 10 wins. So let's go over the schedule. Schedule as followed. How you doing? Yeah, Ole Miss is going to bring back, go back to back. Yes, absolutely going to go back and back with Alabama. That's just going to be something right there. Now, the game of the century is going to be on November 7th against LSU. That's going to be the deciding factor right there against great point, Debo. I appreciate it. Let's go ahead and give you the breakdown. Okay, they will have Abilene Christian. That's the Southland Conference team. That'll be a win, so they'll get off to a good start. They will have North Texas. They will will be on the 12th of September, and they will take on Colorado. Colorado, that'll be on the September 19th. That'll be win. Arkansas, that'll be up in Arlington, Texas. That'll be a win there. So they most likely in the first couple of weeks they will have an undefeated week. But their first loss will be against Auburn, and then their next loss will be against South Carolina, and their third loss most likely will be against Alabama. I'm pretty sure that most likely going to happen in a nutshell against Alabama. But their last three wins will be against Ole Miss, Vanderbilt, and LSU. I don't think they're going to win against. That's not going to happen. I mean, that's not going to happen. To be honest with you, they got blown out last year, 50-7, in that game in Baton Rouge. I think they're going to most likely going to not win that game against LSU. I don't think they will, because they had to take 7 overtimes 2 years ago to get a win. That was a 74-72. That was just an absolute shootout in that game. I was there. I was at Manning's restaurant right there. We was watching that game, and that was just like I said, that was just absolute garbage football right there. I mean, I was not happy that night. I was absolutely angry about that game, the way it ended with 7 overtimes. So I think they're going to most likely get either at least 10 wins this year, or maybe they'll go to 8 wins this year for the Texas A&M Aggies. So I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen here in this 2020 college football season as we go. So this is the SEC East and also the SEC West. We also went over the Pac-12. So once again, let's close out for this evening. Okay, once again, thanks for joining us here on this edition of Sports Time New Orleans Sports Podcast. We broke down the SEC and the Pac-12. Hopefully we have a good season this year. Hopefully we will get a season. Due to this coronavirus, hopefully everybody will be safe and follow the guidelines and stuff like that. And we will overcome this, and we'll be able to have a college football season. So once again, like, share, and follow Sports Talk with Kerry Wiemeyer Show here on Sportscaster. So we will come back tomorrow. We'll have tomorrow's show. Thanks for coming in, Devo. We appreciate you coming in tonight, giving your opinion about it. So let's go ahead and we will see you tomorrow.